And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to the Jeet Kune Dialogues episode number 308. This is one of your favorites, Ask Me Anything with yours truly. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune dialogues. Okay, well, I don't need to do any introductions of anyone today, so we will just get right into it. And some of you guys were kind enough to send in your questions beforehand, and I appreciate that. But if you have anything that you think of while we're live streaming, feel free to go ahead and put it into the comments, and I will try to keep an eye on what's going on there. Now, let me say this right off the bat. So Alex Hausman sent me the most interesting comment and asking if I would be interested in essentially finding out from him how to crack the Jeet Kune code. So I didn't know if he wanted me to reply right there and then, or if he wanted me to save it until today. But in any case, Alex, of course, I would be interested in finding out. His caveat was that I would be forced to change or give up a few of my beliefs or what have you. Well, Alex, all I can tell you is that it wouldn't be the first time in my storied life that I found myself having to change beliefs and being willing to do so. So everybody raise your hands if you think that I should just bring Mr. Hausman onto the dialogues next Friday, because I can move some stuff around and bring him on next Friday. So we can even title it How to Crack the Jeet Kune Code. If you're up for it, Alex, you guys go ahead and let me know about that in the comments. And so I wanted to get that one out of the way. All right, so let me just do a quick check and see who's here. Over on the YouTube, Dennis Lastly, the aforementioned Mr. Hausman. On Facebook, Paul Johnson's here. Ronald Reagan is here. Mark David Collins. There's Cisco. All right, cool. Okay, all right. So let's get into it. So a lot of you guys will know this, will recognize this name, Clara Melton. So Clara wanted to know if there are any particular things that I eat or supplements that I take to maintain health and strength and energy. So I am the worst person to ask for that type of advice. And it's because of this. In my youth, I was perhaps gifted is the word to use, but I never got sick. Some of you have seen my pictures from like 1983 when I was 126 pounds. I used to be a running fanatic. I used to run 3 times a day. Never got sick, never had any health problems or what have you. And a lot of that has carried over into my later years, right? Because what's funny is that Clara says that as an older guy, this type of thing is important to me. And I wonder if he was thinking that I am not also an older guy, right? So I have never really maintained a particular type of diet or what have you. Ron Reagan will tell you I'm not a huge fan of the red meat stuff, the steak stuff, right? Because he always gets on my case when we go to Ruth Chris or we go to Morton's and I order chicken or shrimp or something, right? So, but speaking of Ron Reagan, I did ask him, because Ron is a mature individual, and Ron is still the same size that he was when he was in his 20s or what have you. And he's still got the flat stomach and all that stuff. So I asked him a while ago if there were any supplements or what have you that he took. And he introduced me to this brand, Rainbow Light, it's called. So I've started taking that. But to be honest with you, Clara, I to this day I don't feel any different. There was a time when, because of who I was involved with and what have you, I got on like a vitamin regimen and what have you, but it never really made any difference. I'm one of those who's the color of your urine changes, and that's about it, right? I never really felt any different. Um, my good friend G. Anthony Joseph, what he and Ron have in common is that they are both still the same size that they were when they were in high school. And so G introduced me to these Rejuvica products, right? So I've started taking those too. But again, I can't swear that I feel any different or what have you. On an interesting aside, but related to what we're talking about, Clara, your instructor, Lamar Davis, I, I think it was the first time he was on the dialogues with me. I think it was. And if I remember correctly, he's a huge advocate um, for vitamin supplements and what have you. And he mentioned, man, did he send it to me or did he just mention it in the program? But he gave us a huge breakdown, I think, of the supplementation regimen that he was on. So I'm sure you guys have discussed that before. But yeah, so I'm not a really good guy for that. I do. I'll tell you another tip that I got recently from G. Anthony. And again, you guys have seen him. He's shredded. He's shredded today at 63, the way Bruce Lee was shredded at age 32. So he's got to be doing something right. And one of the things that I got from him was the whole, just eating the small portions thing. Because again, the inner me is 126 pounds, not 200 pounds, right? And so I still believe that, one, I don't have to stretch, okay? That I have teenage flexibility still, and two, I believe that my metabolism is still as high as it used to be, right? Obviously, I'm a dullard, right? But so G recently he told me that one of the things that he does is I mean, his stomach is so shrunken that it takes like 2 bites for him to get full. So that's something that I've started to incorporate. Also, the intermittent fasting. So there's a 12 to 16 hour break between my meals, um, and that's about it. But again, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but I really can't say that any of it uh, definitely makes me feel any different from if I wasn't doing all that stuff. But I guess I'm just erring on the side of caution, right? And doing stuff that I know it's good for me. But really, the thing that keeps me going, Clara, is this. This is the thing. A long time ago, and I would say that I am 98% successful with this. A long time ago, one of my what should I call it? Like daily routine. Part of my daily routine would be ask yourselves this question: did you work out yesterday? And the answer always has to be no. The question is, did you work out yesterday or this morning? And the answer always has to be yes. So even if it means that something happened and I couldn't get to the park and I couldn't do a regular workout or whatever, even if it's just 5 minutes, there's something that has to be done on a daily basis. Okay. All right. So hopefully you got something out of that, and it wasn't a word salad like you know who. Um, Mark David Collins asked, He did a what if. So what if Dan Inosanto had never met Bruce Lee? Where would he be now without Bruce Lee? And Mark is a good friend of mine, so that's why I entertain the question. But usually I stay away from the what if questions or what have you. Um, I I want to think that because of what he has said about his experience at what is it, Fort Campbell in Kentucky, um, about actually Ron Reagan can back me up on this. He was talking a little bit about it in Dallas last weekend. I think that Inosanto would have continued to look at a broad spectrum of martial arts because that's what they were doing at Fort in I think it's Fort Campbell. There were a lot of different systems represented amongst the airmen, and he says in his book about being impressed by a Kempo guy, and that's why when he got out of the service, he went in search of Kempo. But I think that seed of appreciation for other stuff had long been planted. And he said something, Ronnie, I don't know if you remember hearing this. He said something also about the his mom and his aunts, I think it was. We'll have to ask him in Stockton, or maybe we'll even see everybody in Stockton, Ron. But he's about um, what was he talking about? Oh man, I forget. But I remember just hearing him talk about maybe it was the different religious denominations that were represented by the members of his family. It might have been something like that. And I remember thinking to myself, man, everything in this guy's life has been about multiple sources of inspiration or stimulation or multiple sources of interest or just having to contend with differences. And so to me it's not surprising if as a martial artist he ended up being a style hopper. Right. So obviously if he had never met Bruce Lee, he would never have been involved with Jeet Kune, right? So there wouldn't have been that. But I think as a martial artist, he would probably have gone on, Mark, to put his stamp on the cross training approach to martial art development and what have you, right? Okay, all right. Let me see if anybody has put anything into the comments. Um, Paul Johnson, sorry. Oh, okay. All right, I see it. All right, so Paul says how important, not training, but trapping, right? How important is trapping to a JKD man or woman? Well, I can't speak for all the JKD men and women out there, Paul. So, how important is trapping? I can only speak for myself. Is it important? It's not unimportant, but it's not something that I'm gonna die without or what have you. I think that trapping and the initial cultivation of it in the early days of Bruce Lee's training and teaching to a subsequent de-emphasis of it at some point to a resurgence of interest in it at another point. I think all that was based on, to a certain degree, was based on personal preference and what have you. Um, I would join those who talk about trapping becoming this convoluted stuff, a whole series of trapping drills and whatever. I would say that in some cases people have drastically moved away from the practicality or the functionality of trapping. In fact, there's a video that Pat Finley and the folks at what do you call it, at Plato's Cave, that they just put out. Not just, they put it out a few weeks ago. Um, Pat, for some reason, with all the vintage Inasano stuff that he has, he's slow to get it to the official Inasano fan page. So sometimes I will put it there, giving credit to him. And so there was one of Sifudan in Maryland. It might have been, um, and he shows like a paksaw and back fist, I think it is, on Tsuyoshi Abe, and he says, that's pretty much what trapping is, just to remove the obstruction and get the hit. But I think that, we were talking about this last night in the Kali Palooza class, how you take, let's say, about four things, right? Four separate things, and you loop them together into a sequence. The sequence is not how it will happen. The sequence is an opportunity to train four things all at once. So it's sometimes a matter of efficiency, so that instead of spending 5 minutes each on four things, so now it's 20 minutes, you spend 5 minutes on the four of them looped together into a sequence. You don't always do that. You don't always do it that way, but that can be somewhat of a time saver, right? When it comes to teaching and training and what have you. So I think that what happened is that the fancifulness of some of the trapping sequences, like that, became a big deal, and so people really love that, and it's true. Yesterday and today we've been having a good time on Facebook with some historical stuff from the 1980s, the California Martial Arts Academy stuff. And I'd be one of the first to admit that the trap in hands was very, very attractive. And to a certain degree, the trap in hands is what set the JKD people apart from a lot of what else was out there. I mean, everybody kicks some punches, but the trap in hands, outside of like perhaps maybe even a Wing Chun setting, people weren't that familiar with it, and so the trap in hand stuff was unique to the JKD and the Kali people, and so it really caught on and became really, really popular, especially at the hands or in the hands of somebody like Paul Vunak. So, is it important? That depends. Individual preference. Some people will make a big deal about it. Other people will not make a big deal about it. Some people will argue about it. Some people will not argue about it. Right? I think it all depends. Sometimes it's important. Sometimes it's not. You just never know. You just got to deal. You just got to deal with it. Okay. All right. Let's see if there's one more in here. Alex says we can work on the title. Oh, you don't like my title? How to Crack the Jeet Kune Code? To heck with you. Right. Okay. Alex, I guess that's for Clara, but maybe I can put you guys together on that. Right. Okay. Hey, G. Anthony is here. I don't know if I could put all this up. Okay, so here's what G says. He says that I'm on the right health track, especially my view on supplements. Most supplements do not work. They just don't. Get your fitness and health over 99% from good, clean food. That's it. And eat in small portions and move more than you eat. Remember, your brain registers you're full about 15 minutes after you eat. So eat a little and wait and cover down the rest of the food for later. Well, I could tell, listen, what there. Okay, so here's the deal. And any of you who've seen G. Anthony Joseph online, you know this. The guy is not a liar. Okay, you see this thing that he says here about eat a little and wait and cover down the rest of food for later. I can guarantee you, having sat at his kitchen table, gosh, I don't know how many times now, right? I watch him all the time, and it's like this, and he's done. Meanwhile, I'm like this, right? But it's like this, and he's done, and it'll take him like three days to finish off something that the real Rhea cooks up for him. It's incredible. But you guys know that he is legitimate, and he's the real deal. And so let me go ahead and do the shout out for TCF. If you want to see real deal martial art stuff in Miami, come hang out with us. Today is what? The 2nd, so the 17th and the 18th, in 2 weeks, right here in Miami. You can find all the information for this. Go to my page, Dwight D. Woods, on Facebook, and then just click on my events, and you'll see all the information for that. It's 2 weeks away, so if you plan on doing something with this, you need to rush to it. But this is the real deal, friends. Okay. Let's see. Mark Stewart sent this in. Have any of the Concepts brothers, Mark, you kill me, actually created their own, have named it, and teach it publicly in the vein of Glover, DeMille, Cowles, and others? STX comes to mind. Anyone else, and why not more prevalent? Hmm. And then Bill Sang says that PFS was something that came to mind, and contemporary JKD or what have you. Okay, so let's see. So for those of you who don't get this, right? Concepts Brothers. So Mark is referring um, to Inasano students who have gone on to do their own thing, right? We're the Concepts Brothers, right? And we're as talented as the Neville brothers. So in the vein of Glover, so you guys will know that Jesse Glover, it was the founder of non-classical Kung Fu. James DeMille was the founder of Wing Chun Do, and Cowles, I can't remember. Joseph Cowles. Joseph Cowles was the founder of Wu Wei Kung Fu, I think. So that's what Mark's question is about. STX is the brainchild of, I believe, I don't know if Nick Sagnat was involved in it, but STX is, so the S is for Savat, the T is for Thai, and then the X is for cross training or something like that. And that was the brainchild of, I believe it's Eric Paulson and Chad Stahelski, right? And so, but that I mean, that's just a kickboxing approach. It's not like a full-fledged martial art the way that non-classical or Wing Chun Do or Wu Wei were. STX was just a kickboxing approach, as far as I know. As now, what Bill said about PFS, Paul Vunak's progressive fighting systems. That wasn't anything separate, so to speak, from what Sifu Dan was doing. It was just Paul's approach. But everything that Paul did, you would have seen it done if Inasano was teaching. So like in '83 when we were at CMAA, Paul's demonstration, there wasn't anything in it that you couldn't tell came from Inasano. Paul's way of presenting it, Paul's way of grouping stuff together, that might have been a little bit different, right? Um, so I don't think that any of the Concepts brothers created anything that was directly opposite to to what Inosano was doing, or what have you. And I guess in later life, PFS was renamed or changed to Contemporary JKD, or something, which is like functional JKD or tactical JKD, or um, I remember I always wondered when I would see it, and I did see it somewhere, American JKD, which I guess is different from Chinese American JKD, which is different again from Chinese JKD, right? Which is different from Seattle JKD, which is different from Oakland JKD, which is different from Los Angeles JKD. And maybe there's Los Angeles JKD, but there's Chinatown JKD, and then there's Culver City JKD, and then there's Pacific Palisades JKD, and there's Palos Verdes JKD, and whatever. Sorry, I lost it there for a little while. All right. So yeah, that's all. That's all I can say about that. All right. CLRG says, when will Ryan Chafin and I train with you in Prescott? Well, the schedule is fairly booked for the rest of 2024, CLRG. So we will definitely see each other in 2025 for sure. Sin duda, right? Ask your mom what that means. Scorch says, where I'm originally from in eastern Cincinnati, there were several Bukti Nagara Penjak Silat school. Do you incorporate Bukti Nagara in your curriculum? Yes and no. So my introduction to Bukti Nagara obviously would have been through Inosano, and then in April of 1989, we were supposed to have our first seminar here in Miami, and Sifu Dan got sick, and so Burt Richardson and Pendekar Paul de Torres came to Miami instead in April of '89. And I'm pretty sure I had trained with the Pendekar in LA before he came here. So yes, there. So when you see us, Putra Kapalain and Sapu Dalamin and Beset Luarin and what have you, a lot of that is the Bukta Nagara. And I remember it was explained to us, Scorch, that Sarat was the family system, and then there were 3 carrier systems for Penjak Silat Sarat in the Torres lineage. And so Victor de Torres was in charge of let's see. So there was Victor de Torres and Maurice de Torres, I think, was the other one. So there was Ratu Duri or Ratu Adil, and then Victor was in charge of, man, this is embarrassing. Penjak Silat. I can't remember. I'm stuck with the letter V. Tongkat. I think. Yeah. Penjak Silat Tongkat was Victor de Torres' premise, and Ratu Adil or Ratu Duri was another one of the carrier systems, as was Bukti Nagara. They were all carrier systems for Sarat. So we spent a lot of time in Bukti Nagara. I am proud to say, no, actually, I'm not proud to say because I've forgotten them all. But at one point, I knew all 8, I think, Jurus of Bukti Nagara, and now I'd be hard pressed to do even Juru 1, right? So, but since we're talking Silat, Scorch, I heartily endorse Cas Magda's Silat camp if you want to see the impeccable blend of traditional silat training with practicality and functionality, then Cass's Silat Camp is definitely something that you should check out. And if you don't want to wait until next year, then look at Tammy Timlin's Facebook page, and you'll see that Cass is going to be in Okemos, Michigan next month, probably the 22nd and 23rd or something like that. And this is definitely something that you guys should check out for sure. So yes, short answer, Scorch. There's Bhukta Nagara in what we do for sure. All right. Okay. So, all right. So now let's get to Ron Reagan Goldstein's question, which was, why is Cass Magda your favorite JKD senior? Okay, so here's why, Ronnie. Because he's cool. So this is me and Cass. This has to be based on the length of my hair. This has to be 97. Might even be 96. Was probably 97. And this is us outside Cheesecake Factory in Kokowok. So this was the second seminar that we had brought him in for, right? And at the time there was a store downstairs of Cheesecake Factory in Kokowok that sold the Rasta Tams, and so we got him the one with the fake dreadlocks and what have you, and we took this picture. So why is Cass my favorite JKD senior? A lot of it probably has to do with the fact that he was Inosano's assistant when I first went out in '83. So I met him right when I met Sifu Dan, and I think a lot of times there is a gravitation towards the assistant rather than towards the main guy, if you know what I mean, right? And so Cass and I, that's when we met, and dare I say we became friends, and 5 years. So that was '83. In '84, I've done. I don't have a dish. I'll use this, right? So I told this story. I think I told this story. Ron, was it last week in Dallas, right? So in '83, summer of '83, I go out to Irvine. In '84, we are in St. Louis for CMAA, and I meet Cass I see Cass in the cafeteria at breakfast. And so I go up to him and I say to him, I go, hey, how come last year, I'll make this up. How come last year we started with double stick, but then this year you guys started with single stick? And Cass picks up a plate right in the cafeteria and holds the bottom of it up and shows me the circle, right? And he says, you see, Dwight, this circle is the art. So it doesn't matter if you come in at this point, if you come in at this point, if you come in at this point, if you come in at this point. What's important is that you stick to it and you will get it all. And that was pretty much it, right? So Cass has a way of breaking stuff down, explaining stuff. He's all about truth. He's also all about cultivation. Remember, Ronnie, when I asked him what was the most important thing that he learned from Inosano, and he said it was learning how to learn. But cultivation is I would say cultivation is the thing that for me makes him stand out among a lot of my seniors and my colleagues, right? And he and I just happened to become closer than I did with, like, let's say Vunak or Chris Kent or what have you. When Cass branched out on his own into Reseda, um, I would fly in, I would stay in like the LAX area, if I remember correctly. I would stay in the LAX area, or even no, LAX area, and Cass would come over and pick me up, and I would go help him teach, his private lessons. And I remember I had the pleasure of accompanying him to Steven Plink's place, where Cass was doing his own private lesson with Steven Plink. So over the years, he and I have developed a relationship, and in many ways, and many thanks to you, Ronnie. Um, that relationship has grown even more over the past 12 months, and what have you. And you have experienced them, so you know why, right? The first trip that we took out to LA together, I was like, okay, if we do one thing outside of Inasano, we got to go see Cass Magda. So um, cultivation, he's his method of going deep, his method of taking everything that Inasano has given us. He really, I think he epitomizes to a certain degree, right? And Ron, you and I talk about this stuff all the time, so I love them all, but Cass is just a little bit different for me. I think his brain and my brain, maybe they're in sync, um, a little bit more so. But cultivation, um, definitely researching your own experience, right? And then the ability to drill down, the ability to go deep into whatever it is. Cass is the one who first recommended to me and my dear departed friend Neil Colliff the thing about the trick of the month. So everything that you're training, you train, but you have a specific area, maybe even a specific technique or what have you, that you spend some extra time on that every day, right? That's an example of cultivation. That's an example of going deeper into the thing, right? Cass is the one who broke down the 5 uses of the Amara for us. Cass was the one who explained to us about the elements that go into being creative. How to take a technique or a group of techniques, and what aspects of it you look at in order to come up with other stuff, right? Now, and when I say that, that doesn't mean that you take one technique or a group of techniques and then you look to come up with 12 things, right? Which is a Kali approach, as you know, Ron. Um, you're not coming up with different stuff for the sake of coming up with different stuff. You come up with stuff and then you drill down on it to make sure that it makes sense. So it really is putting into practice the research of your own experience, the absorption of that which is personally suitable, the rejection of that which is personally unsuitable, right? And then doing your own thing, doing what it takes to make it your own, right? So that's why he is my favorite. I almost say Canadian JKD senior. No, he's my favorite JKD senior. Period. Right. CLRG again says, wait, let me show it here. How important is it to train with your strong side forward as a JKD person? What's the reason? So again, important. That depends on who it is. For some people, it's important to cultivate both sides. For some people, in order to stay true and loyal to Bruce Lee, you adopt the strong side forward approach. The reason for it, if I remember correctly, if I paraphrase Bruce Lee, is that, well, you're probably going to be better coordinated on your strong side. It'll be stronger, hence strong side. It might even be faster, right? And that type of thing. But then, see, I don't know that my right side is more flexible than my left. You see, because I spent a lot of time in standard operating procedure before I got into JKD. So there was a time when my left leg was a lot more flexible than my right leg. So who's to say? Again, I've said this before. A lot of people don't don't recognize or don't pay enough attention to the idea of personal expression in JKD, right? The importance of the individual. So Bruce Lee's theory about strong side forward is a theory. And if you apply it and it works for you, then it becomes important. If for whatever reason you don't apply it, I've told a story about how it was reported to me that Bruce Lee said to leave Daniel Lee and Richard Bustillo alone and don't bother them with the strong side forward thing. Why? Because they were both champion boxers. Daniel Lee, Cass was telling me last night, Daniel Lee was two-time all China boxing champion. So a guy with that kind of history, right? You come along and you go, okay, well, I want you to put your right side forward now instead of your left side, Daniel, because whatever. Maybe not, right? So it's what works for you. If something works for you, then it becomes important. The reasons for it, if you read up on Bruce Lee stuff, you'll probably be faster. It might be more you might be more coordinated on that side, right? So a lot of good reasons for it, but it is a theory. It is not a proof. I don't want to say it's unproven, but I said this a few weeks ago. If it is beyond the shadow of a doubt the way to go, I think that the professional combat athletes would have discovered it en masse. I think everybody would have discovered this strong side forward approach, and you would see a lot of people change into it. But unless I'm missing something in the fight game, which I don't really follow, I haven't heard of it. So again, in terms of importance, it's what works for you. Kurt Montgomery says, use it or lose it, must always keep moving. Yeah, that's why I swivel in my chair, Kurt. I'm kidding. All right. Physically stretching is most extremely important. Oh, for sure. For sure. I got back into, I should have mentioned this when I was answering Clara's question too. One of the things that worked for me 10 years ago, for example, when just before CLRG left Miami, I think, was my level of activity. So I taught class 6 days a week. I worked out on my own on Tuesday and Thursday and Sunday mornings, because Monday and Wednesday and Friday morning and Saturday mornings I taught class. And Monday's first class was fitness kickboxing. Wednesday's first class was fitness kickboxing, and fitness kickboxing was followed by Muay Thai. Monday's morning fitness kickboxing class was not the only fitness kickboxing class that I taught, because I taught a class Monday night as well, I think, at some point, right? I taught Tuesday and Thursday night, I taught fitness kickboxing. I taught Muay Thai in the mornings, and at some point I was teaching it in the evenings until I gave that off to Johnny. So I had so my level of activity was also a lot higher than in 2015, when things changed and I no longer had the big school to operate and what have you. So yeah, so what Kurt is saying about keeping moving, for sure. So yeah, I discovered a Precor Peloton. I discovered a Peloton bike in the gym at the hotel in Dallas last Saturday, right at the end of my workout. I was like, oh, what's this? So I got on the bike, and I think I pedaled on it for like 15 minutes or something. I was like, oh, see, because I remember my first spin class, I almost died. So I never took a second spin class, right? And I didn't grow up in Barbados with a bike of my own, so I never really got into riding bike and what have you. And so um, when we lived in Kendalltown, everybody had bikes, but I never really seriously took to biking. I was a runner, but this Peloton thing, it was fun. So I think starting tomorrow again, I will incorporate. Uh, It'd be fun to get back down to 126 pounds, huh? I think not. Right. Anyhow, okay. So Ron, okay, let me see. Okay, Mark says he's here. Okay, so Ron also asked, what was your favorite Inasano camp or seminar experience and why? Now, that is a tough one, okay, because let me do the cliche thing and say that every Inasano camp or seminar is an experience, even if I complain about some stuff about it, Ronnie, right? But if I was forced to talk in terms of which ones are favorite, here's what I did in order to answer this, to get an answer for this. So obviously the first one in 83 would have been of significance because that's where everything started, right? But did I know as much as I know now in 83? No, right? But without that first start, nothing would have happened. So, in terms of significance, when I think about it, his first trip here in '89, of course, was was significant because I joined that group of Inasano students who fly him in for seminars. And I'm trying to remember if the reason why he came in October instead of April was because of the ear infection. Hmm, I can't remember if it was because of that. And that's why Pendecker Paul and Bert Richardson came. But I do remember this. He got, at 1 year, he got sick. And um, the doctor wouldn't let him fly. So what his idea was to get two or three of his students and drive nonstop from LA to Miami, right? In order to be able to do the seminar. And the doctor was like, no, I'm not going to let you do that either. I think that might have been why our first seminar was delayed from April until October. So 83, the first seminar with him, 89, the first time that he was here in Miami. Um, but like I said, I went through my photo files, right? So here's a picture. This is me, Stan Brooks, and Sifudan, and we are in Baldwin, Missouri, and I want to say that this is 1988, but I can't be sure, right? Chip and Claudia would know what they might remember, but in any case, it's definitely Baldwin, Missouri. And if I am correct, it was at this seminar that Sifudan spent a lot of time on the Villabril Largusa system. And so this one stands out in my mind, right? So this is Missouri in the summer of '88. So that's one. I don't think I have these organized chronologically, Ronnie. This is us here in Miami in 1992. This is either 92 or 93. And what this is, you can just barely see the dagger in my left hand. But Ron, this is the very first time that Sifudan and I demoed Numerata for the seminar attendees. And so this would have been June, possibly, of 1992 or something like that. And there's some old faces in there. There's Kevin Fernandez and Bill. Oh man, I can't remember Bill's last name. And Tom Furman is in the back there. And yeah, wow, yeah. So this is 92, first time Numerata. This is Coral Springs, 2003. So this was the 20th anniversary reunion Florida seminar, because I brought Cass, and he came with Eleanor, of course. I brought Cass in and attempted to surprise Inisano. They weren't supposed to see each other until the morning of the seminar. But because we were in Coral Springs, I think I flew everybody into Fort Lauderdale International instead of Miami. So instead of nonstops from LA to Miami, they went through Dallas. And that's where they ran into each other. Right. And the sound was like, Cass, what are you doing here? Right. And he's like, oh, I'm on my way to Fort Lauderdale. So my whole surprise thing got busted. But this was the instructor group. That's Cass, Neil, Helena, Levon Martin from Sarasota, Joel, and Diana Rathborn from Minnesota. Right. I think they that seminar, that was all the Inisano instructors there. So that one was significant too. And this one, if the other one was 92, this one is 93. And this one's significant because, man, now I'm trying to remember. Oh, right. Yes. So what I had asked him to do was to highlight the differences and the commonalities between kickboxing methods. And that's why he brought Chad Stahelski, for those of you who don't recognize him. All right. So he brought Chad because, like I told you guys before, Chad was one of the originators of STX kickboxing. So we did the Junfan kickboxing, the Savat, and the Muay Thai all at this seminar, and that's how Chad Stahelski ended up coming down for the seminar. And for those of you who recognize, that's Levon off to the left again, and then squatting in the middle there is Guy Chase. If you guys know who Guy Chase is, another one of my seniors, Guy, I think he was in Tampa at the time. So this might have been when he was in Tampa training with like Carl Gotch or something like that. But now he is upstate Massachusetts, is it? Sorry if I get that wrong, Guy. But yeah, so this was I'm pretty sure this was 93. And so that one was significant too. And I think that's it, right? So Baldwin, 92, 2003, 93. Yeah, there's many more. I mean, 97 was when I got my promotion to full instructor. 2006 was the last one. So of course that one is significant too. But overall, Ronnie, I would say that the thing about it is the longevity of it all, right? You know, you and I had a great time in June in Denver. Then we had a great time last month, even though it was last weekend in Dallas. we're going to head out to Stockton this month and what have you, and we'll still have a good time. So they all rank. I think just it's just still being able after 40 something years to hang out with him and still gain something from it. Actually, on Sunday, Ronnie, I'm going to ask you if you realized a twist in the sombrata that he did in Dallas, and see if you recognized it or not. Right. So now you got to start thinking for Sunday. Okay, let me see if anything so that was it from people who sent stuff in to me beforehand. Let me see if one of the great things. So magazine retriever. One of the great things about eating with chopsticks is that I eat more. So do you find that to be the case as well? Well, I don't use chopsticks unless I'm at eating Chinese, right, or Japanese. But there was a time when I ate cereal with chopsticks. Okay, but that is definitely a good workaround to get yourself to eat more slowly for sure. Yeah, yeah, magazine. I would look. I'll be honest. One of my problems with food, like I never really developed like a palate and what have you, because for me, again, being skinny, being a runner, I started running when I was 15 years old or something. In fact, I don't know how I ended up, but I found a vintage 1982 ad for the Brooks Atonic. Well, they were called Atonic at the time, the Atonic Alpha 1 shoe. And I was like, man, that was my number one shoe until I replaced it with another Brooks model. Anyhow, so I was a runner. So for me, food would, and to a certain degree, it still is. Food is just fuel. So sometimes I want to get wolf it down as quickly as I can and move on to something else, which is probably not good for digestion and what have you. But I never really developed like a refined palate and an appreciation for food and what have you, which is why, like I was telling you guys, when Ron Reagan and I, when we go out to the steak houses, I just sit back and let him take care of the wine and all that stuff, because I don't know anything about any of that stuff. I'm a troglodyte, right? So, but yeah, anything that you can do, I think, to enhance the digestive process, for sure. So if chopsticks work for you, yeah, that's a good one, right? Okay, Del Mountain says, I know that Dog Brothers made Dan and Asano an honorary Dog Brother. Well, that was very nice of them. But do you know if Sifu and Asano gave any of the Dog Brothers a JKD rank? Well, no, that depends on how many of the Dog Brothers I know. So, Lucky Dog, Burt Richardson, Sled Dog, um, Sled Dog is Phil Jelinas in Canada. I can't remember what Nick Sekulis's dog brother's name is. Was Nick Raw Dog? I can't remember Nick Sekulis's name, right? But Nick Sekulis. Those are the only ones I can think of immediately. I don't know if Crafty Dog, Mark Denny, if Mark actually got a JKD rank from Inasano. I would imagine he did. He was around for a long time. Top dog, Eric Naus. I'm pretty sure. I don't think Eric was ever a JKD student, right? And then Alvin Solis, who I only know his name, right, as a founder of Dog Bros. I don't know him personally or whatever. I don't think he was an Asano JKD student either. So Lester, What's Lester's last name? Oh man, I hate when this happens. But another one of my colleagues, Griffin, Lester Griffin. Jeez, I forget what Lester's dog brother's name is, but I'm pretty sure that Lester would have gotten a JKD rank from Sifudan. Um, am I missing anybody? I can't think of anybody else. Right. But Dell, if you can get me a list of the dog brothers, I can try to go through it. If Steve Grody is also a dog brother, then Grody would be another one, right? Who else? That's all I can think of for now. Okay. All right. Shamunian. I really want. What? Excuse me. I really want to know why Joe Louis tried to make it seem Lee wasn't a fighter, but then elsewhere praises him for being a real deal. Yeah, I've heard something about this. I've heard that, and also didn't Chuck Norris like say something one time and then say something else the next time? I don't know, right? You know, maybe I don't know. I really have no idea. You know how sometimes you say something and you don't think that will anybody will repeat it, or that it'll catch on or whatever. So this stuff might have been said before the internet, right? But then you know how when then the internet comes along, and using the internet you can resuscitate something or whatever. So if there was video or a magazine article or whatever, and Joe Louis said, right, it might just have been at the time, Joe Louis's frame of mind. Maybe he wanted to make a point, right? I mean, I don't know if everybody agrees that, like you express it, that he tried to make it seem like Lee wasn't a fighter. That might just be a personal opinion thing, right? And not being any kind of authority whatsoever on Joe Louis. I can't I can't really tell, you know. And I mean, look, even if I was an authority on Joe Louis, I can't tell you what's in somebody's mind and why they would say what it is that they said, right? So again, um, I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy to go to. Maybe somebody who is more of an authority on Joe Louis, like Jerry Beasley or something. Jerry Beasley or Paul Bax. They might be, or Mike Kanarek, right? Talk to them. See if they agree with you that Joe Louis ever tried to make it seem that Bruce Lee wasn't a fighter, right? And see what they think about it, because I'm not necessarily the guy for it. Alex, I'm gonna call it Unified JKD. Now you can't do that, right? Because anything that has to do with Unified and Jeet Kune belongs to me, right? Central JKD, Scientific JKD. I don't like any of those names. You can call, if you're talking about the style, whatever. I'm talking about the episode that you and I will hopefully do next Friday, in which I will subtitle "Cracking the JKD Code." Right? Um, Frank Nordquist says the sticking hands taught at the La Brea Tar Pits Jeet Kune Do is extremely sticky. You know where else? At Pitch Lake in Trinidad. The sticky hands taught at Pitch Lake in Trinidad, Jeet Kune Do, is also extremely sticky, Frank. Thank you very much. All right. Joseph McCrae says, do you like the fractured direction? I'll stop you right there. No, I do not. I don't even have to read the rest of your question, because if it's about Jeet Kune Do and it's about fractured, no, I do not like it. All right. So let's continue. Do you like the fractured direction JKD is moving these days and the MMA influence? I'm not sure about what you mean by the MMA influence. I honestly enjoyed the various Kali, Silat, and Chisao drills. I had the boxing, kickboxing, and BJJ prior to JKD. Okay. I'm not sure what you mean by the MMA influence, Joseph. Um, MMA's influence on JKD or JKD's influence on MMA. I'm not sure what you mean by that. And as far as the fractured direction is not something of these days. It is a continuation of stupidity, um, what we would call chippedness, right? That started 30 years ago, before I was born. Kidding, right? Yeah, if you're still on here, Joseph, and we get to it, let me know what you mean by the MMA influence, because I don't think, whichever direction you mean it in. If JKD influence on MMA or MMA's influence on J, but what's MMA's influence on JKD? Because now that brings us into the realm of what's a sport and what's not a sport and all that. But if what you're talking about is JKD's open-mindedness towards cross-training, so to speak, and that having an effect on MMA people, it makes perfect sense to me. I'm not sure what you mean in the opposite direction, but like you, I enjoy the Kali and the Silat and the Chisao and the Huba drills and what have you. Yep, for sure. I enjoy. I mean, I don't get to it that much, but I enjoy looking at jujitsu, right? Um, and like when I see how they work stuff out, it's all Kali to me, because Kali is the vehicle that I adopted, that I use for working stuff out. So I look at BJJ through a Kali lens, and so much of it makes perfect sense to me, right? Joseph says, I felt like I could already fight before JKD, but I really enjoyed the exposure to other things and it was fun. Yeah, of course. Of course. There's nothing wrong with being a fighter who has an open mind and can look at other things, right? Who is this showing up on my show? Zane Isaacs. You can never trust him, on what he'll say. Strong people are hard to kill. Fight sports don't have speed classes, they have weight classes. This must be from way before, because I can't keep up with the comments based on what we're talking about. Strong people are hard to kill. Fight sports don't have speed classes, they have weight classes. Zane, that's in reference to what? I forget now, right? Chip says, yes, it was. So that must be Baldwin, Missouri, 1988, right, Chip? Okay, Magazine again says, I think it's quite possible that strong side forward might be more conducive to the student blending like water to the oncoming attack. Strong side forward might be more conducive to the student blending like water to the oncoming attack. I don't know about that, because that whole blending like water thing takes a while. So I don't know that strong side forward would specifically have an effect on a beginner student. Now let me think. Strong side forward, blending like water to the oncoming attack. Yeah, okay. I mean, if a left stancer, if I'm in right lead and a left stancer moves at me, it's fairly easy. Well, depending on who it is, right? But it's fairly easy to cut into that tool with my lead hand. So if that's the kind of thing you're talking about, magazine retriever, then I agree with you wholeheartedly. Yes, right. So if I'm right lead and a left jab, right, a left lead comes at me, it's real easy sometimes to cut through that, right, and simultaneously deflect that and hit and what have you. So strong side forward in that case, if what you're talking about is unmatched leads, yes, I agree with you. Yes, for sure. Right. 88. Okay, Dell says Pavel Satsulin. Wait, I can't read it on this side. I got to try to read it over here. Talks about the law of diminishing returns when it comes to training Secret Service agents. He said exceeding 53-pound. Did we talk about Secret Service agents, or you just you just pulled this in from the ether, Dell, right? He said exceeding 53-pound kettlebell swings can hinder the agent's fighting ability. Well, shoot, for me, exceeding like a 30-pound kettlebell, right? Exceeding a 30-pound kettlebell would probably would not work well for me. I what years? Let me try to remember. If I could put my hands on the Dragon Door issue of that Sifu Dan was on the cover, I might be able to tell you when it was that we were into kettlebell training, because I think it was because of him that I got into it, but I don't have. Yeah, I don't have that magazine at hand, so I can't tell you. But I know that definitely 2008, 2009, 2010. We were definitely swinging kettlebells in the fitness kickboxing class. I know that for sure, right? And then I would do it on my own in Kendalltown. So I could see that though, right? That if you start loading up and you start going too heavy with the kettlebell, that it doesn't really do anything for your fighting ability. Like it'll probably just bulk you up and slow you down or something. But yeah, okay. Well, that was a left field one there, Dell. Thank you very much for that. Right. Alex says I would call the episode. I think you mean sacrificing, right? Sacrificing JKD to reach its goals. Blasphemy with JKD's Jesus. Alex, you're terrible. Alex, tell me something. When I first met you, weren't you Iron Monkey JKD? I thought about that today. I am pretty sure you were. Okay. Chip says it was 88, but not winter. That's right. It wasn't summer. That's right. Chip, I was telling people about that trip last week in Dallas, how um, Paula Inasano looking the way she looked, Dan Inasano looking the way he looked, you looking the way you look, me looking the way I look, and Claudia, when the five of us walked into the restaurant or whatever, and people were like, "What the heck is this?" Yeah, it was winter. Now, yeah, I have an image of Claudia in her jacket and what have you. You're right. It was winter. True, true, true. Okay. All right. So that seems to be it for everybody. I don't think did I miss anybody? Let me run through it one more time. And if not, we will. Oh, I missed that one first time around, Mark. And Ryan. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Ryan. Definitely in 2025, we will do something in Arizona. Right. Mark says he's been reading the closed captions because it's too early in Thailand for volume. I appreciate that, Mark. Right. And I'm sure everybody in your house appreciates it too. Right. Okay. All right. So I think that is it from everybody. So we will. Okay. Yeah. So Alex says he is still Iron Monkey JKD. I love that name. That gives me a cool Chen Quan Tai vibe when 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 I first saw it, because Chen Quan Tai was one of my kung fu heroes, right? But okay, they came to call you. Chip says, ah. Chip, this is a family show. wasn't the New Orleans seminar memorable? Yes, it was, Chip. It really was. Um, but yes, yes, it was memorable. And get your minds out of the sewers. It was memorable because that was one of the times that Sifudan, he put me in charge of a little group, right? And our good friend was in that group, but also in that group was the Kempo Karate Grandmaster Huck Planas. So I can credit myself with, to a certain degree, introducing Grandmaster Huck Planas to double stick, right? And that was at actually we were talking about this seminar too last weekend, Chip, because I ran into somebody from, I can't remember if the guy was from New Orleans himself, but I ran into somebody who, was he at that seminar? Because that seminar was 91, if I remember correctly. No, November of 1990. Check my history, Chip. It couldn't have been 91 because we went out of business in 91. So it must have been 1990. But yes, that was a significant seminar too. Sifudan put me in charge of that little group, and it was King Lam, who was a Shotokan guy, from what I remember. And so the guy I was talking with, Chip, last week was telling me that he's still there, and I think I have come across stuff from him. King Lam in New Orleans. Wow, yeah, that was a good seminar, for sure, for sure. Right. Okay. All right. So that will do it for today, before Chip remembers something else and gets me in even more trouble and makes me blush even more than I already did. All right. So thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. Anything else that you think of, go ahead and put it in the comments below. But that's all I'm going to say for this video. Thanks for those of you who came in from on the YouTube as well, right? So anything else you need, right, go ahead and put it in there and I'll take a look at it sometime tomorrow, right? Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods, at paypal.me/UnifiedMA Miami, paypal.me/UnifiedMA Miami. You can get your copy of the Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1, raw but edited version. paypal.me/UnifiedMA Miami. There you go. That's what that looks like. Also, keep in mind, February of next year, 1st and 2nd, Titans of JKD 4. Go to titansofjkd.com and the basic information is there. You could even register right now and beat the, I think the first price deadline is November, right? So go to titansofjkd.com. You can also support the show at jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this. That's where you'll see stuff like this. That's where you'll see stuff like this. Okay, jkdrebel.com. Just click on the Rebel Gear link. Over on the YouTube, you can also become a paid subscriber. Just click the join link, and that's where you'll see the different levels of membership that we have over there on the YouTube. But of course, like I said earlier, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune dialogues. So, till the next episode, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. You guys have a great weekend, and we will talk soon. Take care.